Now this I could get used to. I think this, guys, this is my real gender. Sorry, one thing I quick forgot. Yeah, I directed a freaking movie, and it's out today. I don't know why the hats are necessary in a digital future, but you know what? I earned it. All right, it's an accessory. Put it on my avatar. Don't take this away from me. Yes, hello there, interwebs. I hope you're all doing well. And if you have not been watching my channel for a while, or just maybe missed it somehow, I don't know how, because I talked about it in every video because I've been so freaking excited about it. But yes, I have directed a science fiction film that is out today on Nebula called IDENTITEAZE. And oh my gosh, I am so excited and so pumped to finally have it out and share it with all of you. I'm also a little bit nervous because I hope you all like it. But yeah, I'm overwhelmed with how much joy and excitement I have at this project, and I just wanted to take this video to not only talk about on a personal level what this film has meant to me and what I've learned in the making of this film, hopefully the first of many films that I get to make, but also to give you a little bit of a tease and IDENTITEAZE. Get it? Tit? Because there's tit in the title and then ease. Look, all right, don't judge me for putting tit in the title of my movie, all right? I'm a creative, all right? This is my vision. But yes, at the end of this video, I want to give you all a little bit of a tease and a glimpse of the film if you have not already signed up to Nebula to watch it. And beyond that, also just give you a little behind the scenes look at some of the stuff that we did while making the actual film, like rehearsals and things like that. But before we get there, I actually wanted to spend this video just taking a really brief moment to just tell you all what it was like to make a science fiction film and what I learned and how I feel I've grown both as a person and a creator through this process, and how just excited I am to be on this journey, hopefully a very long journey into the next phase of my career. And don't worry, I am not leaving YouTube. I love YouTube, I'm excited about YouTube, but we'll talk a little bit about where I'm feeling all of that. But let's talk about the exciting stuff first. Let me, actually, if you don't know what IDENTITEAZE is, let me sell it to you, at least in terms of what the story kind of is without spoiling too much for you. And because this film is about an all-digital future, I brought something that perfectly fits that. Physical media. Sorry, this way. Yeah, there's even a book in here. So IDENTITEAZE really very much is an amalgamation of a lot of my biggest inspirations over my years as a person, you know, just existing. So it is very much a Twilight Zone-esque film, kind of been partially inspired by movies like Cube, a sort of horror thriller where it all takes place mainly in one location and has a very play theater-like vibe to it with a bunch of different actors just acting their frickin' butts off with some cool creative ideas. But also it has a very cyberpunk feel in the vein of The Matrix. Yeah, I have a VHS of The Matrix. Aren't you impressed by me? Sorry. I'm such a dork. Anyways, it also has elements of things like Hackers, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, and yes, I will be making a video on Hackers in the very near future, and for some reason I have the novelization of it, which also whips.
We have no names, man, no names. We are nameless.
As well as 80s movies like Tron, which were sort of these early visualizations of the internet on film, as were Hackers and even The Matrix to some degree. And what I hope IDENTITEAZE kind of is a way of doing that as well. I sort of look at what the potential future of our digital universes and digital identities actually are. And on that note, speaking of digital futures and identities, some of the themes and ideas present within the movie are very reminiscent of William Gibson's Neuromancer, as well as my personal favorite author of all freaking time, Ursula K. Le Guin, and her explorations of gender and context and who we are in different civilizations and societies. Certainly, I'm aiming very high. I definitely don't hit the heights of Ursula K. Le Guin, but certainly, if you aim for the stars, you can only, wait, how did that phrase go? I'm a writer. If you shoot for the sky, you'll be amongst the stars, whatever the hell that phrase goes. And also, it is very much inspired by recent works like Severance, which I don't have a physical media copy of. I don't even know if they've released one. They should, Apple, if you haven't. But the actual story pitch of IDENTITEAZE is that two people, a boy and a girl played by James Tyson and Maggie Mae Fish, who many of you may know from here on YouTube, wake up in a room with no windows, no doors, no discernible exits, and also no memory of who they are. And they must find a way to escape and also learn the context of the world and who they are in the process. The movie itself is me exploring this idea of how our identities, are corporatized and sold to us, packaged, told to be expressed through how we consume and who we work for. and how none of us are given tools to find who we really are, and how choosing to find yourself amidst all of that is the start of a much larger, more radical journey.
I don't often see glitches in my system. I built this world too well. So I take notice when they do happen. And I don't like glitches.
That's as much as I want to spoil for right now, but if you're a bunch of nerds like me, you'll also appreciate the fact that this film stars none other than John Delancey, the amazing Q from Star Trek The Next Generation, and one of the sweetest people I've ever had the joy to work with, as well as Abigail Thorne from Philosophy Tube, Ezra Reeves, who is an amazing non-binary storyteller and actor who appeared in the 4400, Darius Rose, who many people know as her drag persona Jackie Cox from RuPaul's Drag Race and numerous other places, including the Star Trek fandom, and who does an amazing job as one of the major antagonists of the film. The amazingly talented Jessica Nicole, who many of you nerds will know from Fringe, as well as my two amazing leads, the aforementioned James and Maggie. So if all of that hasn't sold you on identities yet, I'll have a little bit more at the end of this video, but I wanted to take the rest of this video to not just hawk my wares, but to share what identities has meant to me. And I think the best way to do that in a very internet list-friendly way is to talk about the different things that I learned while making identities. As many of you may or may not know, YouTubing was not always my first goal or first job. I actually went to film school to become a filmmaker, and Identities is certainly not my first film. I did do other films in film school, very much like film student-esque things. I actually think I put some of them on this channel, but this is definitely the first movie of this scale and size. Like, we did it, and it looks like a Hollywood feature production. Like, I would not be at all embarrassed or worried if I put this alongside any TV show or streaming service show. And shout out, by the way, to Panavision, which actually gave us the new filmmakers grant, which allowed us to use all of their huge Hollywood level cameras for free, which was just absolutely amazing. And we made it for around $100K. That's like not a small chunk of change, and Nebula certainly footed most of that bill, because I certainly don't have that. But it certainly is not something that you would see on like a Star Wars level or anything like that, and yet I think we made something that stands up right next to all of it. And so I'm really, really proud of that, and proud of everyone who worked on it. And so the first thing that I learned about making Identities is that filmmaking is fun. I love making YouTube video essays. I love doing weird stuff like this and coming up with creative ideas, but there's something about filmmaking where you're just working together to make weird stuff happen. There's this collective just, I don't know, energy of we want to make this weird specific thing that is in this script happen. And we all come together to be able to do it. Like, for example, on Identities, part of the story requires us having this very sci-fi-esque looking room with no windows, no doors, no exits, and we had to build that from scratch. And a long part of pre-production, probably the biggest headache of pre-production, and my art director, Mr. Aaron, as we call him, because there's a lot of Aarons on this production. We have a bunch of people named Aaron, and it became a running joke on the film, so we have different names for them. But Mr. Aaron, my art director, just had to come up with really cool ways of building our set, and we ended up coming up with this like glass floor with light shining through. We built the walls. We literally built the ceiling that you'll see in the film in my garage, all together, having beers and just sort of like cutting it together. There's Aaron building the set. It's all set-y. These are professional industry terms, as they say.
I'm working real hard.
Yeah. It was actually just a pure joy to do, and it was just really fun, even on set, just to be like, all right, we have this really weird shot that I want to get. So Maggie, you're gonna have to jump onto this mat that we have out so we can get this visual effect. It's just, I don't know, it's just really, really fun to just see everyone have this energy and excitement about doing a weird thing. No matter what you're doing in film, it's always weird, and that's just, I love that. I love making weird things. A lot of it's just like, let's do something weird and have fun doing it. Which leads me to the next thing I'm gonna say, is it's very hard. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the emotional aspect of filmmaking in just a little bit, but just in terms of the physical aspect of making film, it is incredibly difficult. There's a lot of stuff that you need to be doing, thinking outside the box, and it's very tiring, long days. Even in pre-production and post-production, you're like always taking notes, getting comments from people, especially when there's a lot of different people who want to have opinions on it, because we are making this for Nebula, and they've been fantastic and great, but there's just a lot of plates to spin, especially as a director, and learning that has just been a really cool process, something that I'm actually very thankful to Nebula and everyone who worked on the film for, because it made me feel like, oh, I am prepared to like deal with a large apparatus and still try to fight for and hold on to my vision within that. And Nebula has been super amazing at supporting all of that. Not to sell Nebula to you, but I'm just being very earnest about what Nebula has meant to me in this process. So that has always been very cool. So yeah, it's a very hard physically process, but also something too, we tried to, behind the scenes, make sure that we were very open and accepting of people with disabilities. We were, a COVID safe set. We also had some people on the team who were disabled, and we wanted to make sure we accommodated them and made them feel just as much able to be part of the team and the vision, because that's something that's really important to me. I feel like Hollywood very much often isn't accommodating to people who are even not just physically different bodies, but queer people and people of color are just seen as like, things you have to deal with in film. And to me, no, everyone's unique vision and artistry is an essential part of making film. And one thing I and my producer, Dr. Aaron, were so proud of was that most of our cast and crew were women, non-binary folks, trans folks, queer folks, and people of color. So much so that we were awarded the Parity in Action certification from Women in Film. We wanted to include everyone, not as some tokenistic checkbox, but to enable each of these beautiful artists and beautiful people to just showcase their hearts and passions on screen. Which leads me to my next thing, that is the biggest thing that I think I learned from making this film, which is being a director ultimately is about uplifting everyone else. I had this moment while working on Identities where we had our first Zoom call with everyone who was working on the film. Like, we had been hiring people, we've been casting people, and it was our first meeting where we just got everyone that we could who was available to be in a call. And I logged into the Zoom call right on time, and everyone else had already kind of logged in. And I just saw this sea of faces that were looking at me. And I saw all these people that we had hired, that we had talked to, that we had interviewed, and I had picked, along with my producer, Dr. Aaron McDonald, sorry, I might actually get emotional at this, because they were very cool people, and people I was excited to work with, and people who just were amazing artists in their own right. And I realized at that moment that my job as a director wasn't to like rule the set. I'm very anarchistic kind of person, very like create flat power structures. And I realized my goal was to uplift everyone that I had hired's artistry and enable them to be their best selves. And hope that I had communicated what the story was about, what the film was about, what we were trying to say, and that everyone got that and understood that, and maybe help guiding them to all fit together, but ultimately letting them guide the story. And I could literally be here for another hour telling you about just every single person who worked on this film's artistry, from Kent, our amazing PA, who was just doing everything on set. He just kicked ass so much and was just always there and always ready to do stuff, and was just a core essential part of this film, all the way to my DP, Tamara, who just had these beautiful shots and fought for these sequences that I'm like, oh, we don't really have the budget for it. And she's like, I know how to do this, trust me. And she did it, and she killed it. All the way to people like Maddie, our costume artist, who just came up with these really cool costumes that evoked this sort of workman-like, working class, but still futuristic feel that I was really going for, and this sort of like tech bro attitude. Like, everyone on this film just did amazing. Amy Summers, our composer, who made the music for the film that I just worked with throughout post-production, to talk to Christine, my editor, who just was so hardworking and just came up with such a cool way to edit the film and cool ideas and concepts with how to cut it together that I hadn't even thought of. Katie Day, who made an exclusive song, which, by the way, you should go check out her song. She wrote a song just for the film, and one of these the sequences that I was most proud of in the film, she wrote the music to, and you can check out the music video down below. I could go on forever, and it is such a privilege. It was such a privilege to be able to make a movie with these people. And I hope that it is the first of many, but even if this is it, this is an absolute privilege to be able to make with these people, and to work alongside these artists, and to have been the impetus for a project that these people came together and worked on. It just an honor and a privilege on every single level. And again, it goes to that like dream, right? We work together to make these dreams. And to me, as a queer person, and this will cut into the next thing that I'm going to talk about, but to me as a queer person, I always view being queer. And when I say queer, I don't mean, necessarily being lesbian, bisexual, gay, transgender. I mean people who are seen outside the norm of the systems our world sets up. Being queer, I think, is a future state of being. There's a really beautiful quote by a philosopher, Jose Esteban Munoz, if you allow me to be a little bit pretentious, that says,
"The future is queerness's domain. Queerness is a structuring and educated mode of desiring that allows us to see the future beyond the quagmire of the present. The here and now is a prison house. We must strive in the face of the here and now's totalizing rendering of reality to think and feel a then and there. Some will say that all we have are the pleasures of the moment, but we must never settle for that minimal transport. We must dream and enact new and better pleasures, other ways of being in the world, and ultimately, new worlds. Queerness is essentially about the rejection of here and now and an insistence on potentiality or concrete possibility for another world."
Jose Esteban Munoz was a queer philosopher, and he believed in this idea of queer futurity, that in our everyday interactions with each other, queer people made the future amongst ourselves, a version of the future that is against the order of now that makes us queer. The world tells us that we are pushed outside, that we are outside the borders of how the world is supposed to include us, and doesn't want us to be a part of it or fit into it if we can, if it'll allow us to, depending on how it racializes us or otherizes us. But amongst ourselves, if we remain resistant to it, just in the way we interact with each other and build and perform new ways of building the world. They say gender is a performance, but so too is our society. That creates a future vision. It enacts this dream we have in our head. That by performing between ourselves a different way the world can exist creates an anticipatory dream reality between ourselves that is a small glimpse of the future that we hope to build together by imagining it and performing it, and ultimately fighting for it and showing it to others, like I hope this film does. And filmmaking is also an enactment of a dream. And so to be able to enact a dream with queer people and be able to uplift them and tell a story that is about this very thing that I've been talking about right now too, the story of the film is this. I can think of nothing that brings me greater happiness and joy. And it was just an honor. And that brings me to the next thing that I learned. It's scary being a filmmaker. On numerous different levels. I am putting this film out today, and all of you are hopefully going to go watch it. And I don't know how you're going to react, but films are a dream, and I poured my heart into this. Everyone poured their heart into this, and I know that it's not perfect. There are many things I learned as a filmmaker making this that I look back on the film and I'm like, I could have done this better. I could have done this part better. I could have made this better. I could have written this section to be a little bit clearer. And there's nothing I could do about it after a certain point in the process. But hopefully this is me at the beginning of my journey, and hopefully I'll improve those things as I go along. But you sit here and you're scared by how people are going to perceive it and take it, this thing that means so much to you. And ultimately, I hope it means as much to you as it means to me. But at the end of the day, I just hope it means something to somebody and touches somebody, because it's me trying to reach out with everyone who worked on this film and say, this is how I see the world. This is the hope that I have for the world. Because that's ultimately why I make film. I make film to share my joy and hope. And this gets into something that I've been alluding to, is it's scary as a trans filmmaker especially. And I don't mean to go down the rabbit hole of like, oh, there's a lot of transphobia in the world. There is. But as a filmmaker, specifically, you make film because you want to share this thing you're feeling in your heart so badly, and you want to put it out into the world so badly. And you want people to feel it. That's what art to me is the sharing of our humanity with others so others understand it and feel it. Like, I can make video essays all day and tell you facts and stories about the world and how I perceive it, and the philosophy and research and all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, we're all human, and we feel stories, and how we feel them and how we relate to them and empathize with them is how we ultimately put a filter on the world. And being a filmmaker is trying to share that with somebody. And being trans, I look at the world today and just look at different TV shows and movies that are made by queer and trans filmmakers who are often ostracized, shoved to the side. And you see people vilifying our perspectives. And that's hard because I don't make Identities. Identity is a very queer film with a very trans ethos, but I really hope the story is something that everyone can relate to. I want people to relate to it. It is me trying to share my heart and my perspective with the world. And I know people will just reject it based on who I am. And hopefully as my career grows, that'll be a bigger and bigger thing. And you make the work because you believe in it and you love it and you have joy in it, but also because you want to share it, and that's scary. And being frank, this past year has been one of the hardest years of my life. I love making YouTube videos. YouTube videos are great, but just the way the world is and the way we have this cult of personality around people and try to put things into binary, good or bad, like you're good, you're bad, instead of talking about people's humanity. It's very difficult, and it has honestly been very depressing. I don't know if I'm ever going to share some of the stuff that I went through this past year. I don't know if I'm, long and short, it was difficult. Had some of the hardest parts of my life this past year. And it made working on Identities very, very, very hard. But thankfully, Identities was always a joy and was a boon to my soul because of the people I got to work on it with and the people I was making it for, all of you, for Nebula, for everybody. And so I managed to get through and make Identities what it is, but there's a part of me also too that wonders if it could have been better, if I had been in a better headspace throughout all of it that had nothing to do with Identities. But it's just, I guess it's hard to be eloquent about stuff that depressed me deeply over the past year. But Identities was a joy, and I hope that what it imparts means something to people, because there's a sequence in this film near the end that was the thing I first thought of when I made this movie, when I was thinking about the film, germinating the idea. And it was this hopeful idea that expressed a joy in my heart that I wanted to share as I was coming out as trans, but also starting to feel like life was worth living again as I began my transition. And that sequence, I think, captures it as best as I can with the time that I had, the emotional state I was in, and the person that I am today, and the learnings that I made as a filmmaker. And so I hope that is there. It's by no means incidental that sequence of the film features some of my favorite shots. Loving and uplifting images of just human beings who came in as extras. Images of people who are often underappreciated and yet whose existence is what makes being human a true delight. I made this film for them, for you, to feel like who they are is not other, but a beautiful, necessary part of the tapestry of humanity. In the words of Star Trek, because, there's some Star Trek in there, the dreamers and the dream. At the end of the day, though, I loved every second of making Identities. I loved every second of this movie, watching it. I'm so proud of it, and I hope I get to tell more. And with all of that said, there's one last crucial aspect of this film story that I want to share with all of you. As many of you know, I've been talking about it a little bit more and more on social media and mentioning it in other places, but I've been seeing someone, also named Aaron, funnily enough. There's a lot of Aarons working on the film. Dr. Aaron, my producer, Mr. Aaron, our art director. The two of the characters in the film are named Aaron, spoilers, things like that. AD Aaron, who is my assistant director. A lot of Aarons. But my partner is also named Aaron. And we've been seeing each other on and off for many, many years now. And we've been, together again for the past year and change. And I haven't talked about her much on camera just because she's also trans, and I worry about the world and YouTube, and I just don't want her to deal with the shit that I have to deal with a lot. But she means the world to me, and I want to share her with all of you and share who she is and the joy that she gives me, the weird nerdy dork that she is. And one thing that means a lot to me about this film is the fact that when we first started dating 6 years ago, again, we've been on and off for a long time. So some of the times I've been off, sometimes been on. But on one of our first dates, the song that inspired the main climactic sequence of this movie played. And I explained the scene to her. We were driving around the San Fernando Valley together in her, I think it was her car. And she was the first person that saw my excitement at explaining this scene. And she was excited too. You share your excitement about a scene or a movie, in Hollywood especially, and some people are like, oh, that's a good idea, sell it to me, write it up, send me an email. It's very businesslike. But she was the first person who felt the emotion, who dream the dream with me. And in that sequence of the film, the climactic moment of sequence of the film, we had a bunch of extras, which, by the way, shout out to a bunch of my patrons who came and were extras on the film. It meant the world to me to have you in this film. And I hope the shots in the sequence that you see yourselves in are full of joy and appreciation of you. I wanted to share your personhood in the brief moments that we can with joy and love. And in the actual climax of the movie, you'll know it when you see it. There's a person dancing in the background of the shot. I look at her butt every single time, just wagging in the background of this climactic shot. That's Erin. That's my Erin, the person that I love the most in this world. It means so much to me that the first person to believe in this dream, the person that I love with all of my heart, is now an inescapable part of it, or written into it forever. And I'm not necessarily someone to fall into cis-heteropatriarchal norms, quite a lot, as it should be clear. But I love her very much, and she's in the other room right now as I film this. I'm gonna keep this a little bit quiet, but at the premiere, I'm planning on doing something. So, yeah, by the time you see this video, that might have happened. So hopefully you'll be seeing a little bit more of her on this channel as we go forward, because she means a lot to me. Also, I just wanted to show you all real quick here at the end. It's a Pokeball ring because she's a Pokemon fan. I figured that would be her nerddom for her ring. So, just know I'm marrying a nerd. Hopefully. Maybe she'll say no. Hopefully not. If I'm depressed in my next video, you'll know. Anyways, enough of that indulgence. The last thing that I will say before I go into a couple little clips and behind the scenes stuff for the film that I'll share with all of you is just to say this. Identities means the world to me. I hope it's actually the beginning of a much larger story. I've been sharing this around. Identities is actually meant to be either proof of concept or actually a pilot episode for a larger series. I have a bunch of lore and fun stuff and stories that I want to tell with a bunch of these characters. Like Abigail's character in the film she has a relatively small part, but I have a lot of stuff that I want to tell with her character. Same thing with John Delancey. They're both kind of villains to a degree, and I have some stuff that I want to do with them as villains, but every character I just feel such a connection to, and I want to work with Darius and James and Maggie and Ezra and Jessica and everyone again, and tell this story, because I think there's some really beautiful filmic poetry that I want to do with this series, if we have more budget and more time than we did with this film. And perhaps you should stick around after the credits, because while Identities I hope tells a full, complete, satisfying story on its own terms, there are definitely some hints and teases, IDENTITEAZES, for the possible future that we could dream together. Also, Nebula and I put a bunch of work into creating an ARG for the film, so if you want some extra scenes and lore, maybe with some John Delancey and Abigail Thorne and a few other folks, I would go check out maybe this website. Just tit-easing you some more.
If you're going to be at Advent, you need to know his world, Steve's world, isn't as perfect as it seems. There's something else here.
So if you do want to support Identities, if you do want to see it, and you want to hopefully help us push to get even more identities told, please do consider signing up to Nebula at the link below. It'll be down there below. This Nebula is not paying for this. I'm just saying this out of the earnest of my heart. I'm not even going to make money out of this outside of like what I would normally do of being on Nebula, but direct signups for Identities, I don't get direct money for that. I actually lost a lot of money making Identities. Sorry, I'm crying a little bit. But yeah, so if you sign up for it, it really would help be able to tell more. But beyond that, I know there's a lot more I can do and tell even beyond Identities. So hopefully it's the beginning of the journey. Don't worry, I have YouTube stuff planned for the future. But beyond all of that, I hope you enjoy these clips of Identities and some behind the scenes things. And I hope to see you on Nebula, and I hope you enjoy the film. Beyond all that, my friends, live long and prosper. We made it! It's the last day of shooting, and we're gonna get it done! We're gonna get it done!
Last day, how you feeling?
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
It's the last day of Identities.
It is!
guys!
How are you feeling?
I think the common consensus amongst the glam squad over in our little corner is tired but good. Tired because obviously we've been going for 5 days, but good just because we're really proud of all the work that we've done. Just seeing it on the screen is incredibly gratifying. People have been incredibly sweet and nice. It's just been a really exhausting, but just all around fantastic process.
I mean, this has been awesome. This has been such a fun, amazing experience. Everybody's been absolutely killing it. It makes my job easy.
Can I touch you?
Yeah.
I could not have done this film without this human being. You are amazing and you've been killing it and also serving looks all week long.
Yay! Last day, feeling good. A party just started down the street, so we'll deal with that. But that's the magic of filmmaking. We are on schedule, as good as that is, and it's looking amazing, so it's all worth it.
There was cheese this whole time. It's Friday, the last day of shooting, and I'm just learning there was cheese. And cut! That is a wrap! Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, yeah.
We made a movie. Oh shit, we gotta tear all this down.
There's a sound in your mind, heard only in the silence between heartbeats. It's chaotic, unruled. Isolated, it tricks you into thinking it's a full song.
Who are you?
But in truth, you're just an instrument. Waiting for a conductor to teach you the actual melody.
Where is he?
As far as you're concerned, there's only one of you.
Perfect. Stronger. Always on time. I don't often see glitches in my system. I built this world too well. So I take notice when they do happen. And I don't like glitches.